to the Fermented World Homebrew channel. We are on this side of my bloody kitchen, which means we're making beer. Today we're going to be brewing a stout. I had stopped doing the videos for the beer brews because they weren't my own beers, and I wanted to try a few of my own beers first before I thought, you know, I'm going to record one, upload it and share it. So I did one previously, which was a Goes, and it was quite nice. Things were learnt, of course. I did share the recipe on there and the timings, method, etc. But today we're going to be brewing a stout. So this is what we've got. We've got some roasted barley. We've got some crisp chocolate malt. We've got some dextrin malt. We've got some Paul's wheat malt. We have got some best ale malt. And we've got a big selection of hops. Now, this setup with the grain there, it's not far off one that I did brew from a kit, but I've just changed a couple of the quantities and added the addition of dextrin malt because I heard it works well with mouthfeel and stuff like that. So we're going to give it a go. We have also got 4 different hops going into this. The main hops in the boil is going to be Challenger. That's where we're going to get all of our bitterness from because it's a low alpha acid. It's not going to give us something that's crazy bitter. Then you've got Styrian Goldings, which is going to go at the end. All 3 of these are going to go in 10 minutes to the end. There's going to be 5 grams of each, so it's not going to be a great deal. But these are just what I've got knocking around. They're all reasonably low alpha acid. The Saaz is 2.9. Brewer's Gold 4.5, Styrian Goldings is 5. So they're all below that, and the Challenger is 7.6. Now this is also going to have lactose in it, lactose sugar. So if you are lactose intolerant, then please do not add it for obvious reasons. You could, if you want to boost the sweetness, you could try other sweeteners or something like that. I'm sure that there's a couple of sweeteners that you can use. We might not even need that, but we're going to use it because I bought it and we've got it. We're going to use some lactose, and I'm even going to put in a little bit of spray malt, just to boost up the ABV because I want this to be reasonably strong. I'm hoping for around a 7%, but that all depends on what we get at the end. I'm not putting the spray malt in at the beginning because I don't want to overshoot it and end up with something crazy chewable kind of strong. So that's where we're going. So first things first, with my setup, I'm doing 11 litres into my pan. This is a 15 litre pan. I use the brewing bag method. If you can adjust this for whatever your setup is, that's fine. I've got a mustache hair that's tickling my nose as always, doing me pipping. So 11 litres in here, 4 litres in here, and we'll get it going. I don't know a great deal about water chemistry, so I just kind of do what I think's right and go with it. So it's about a 2-gallon batch, so 2 Camden tablets crushed down. Now stouts, from what I've read, they really do like hard water. They like the minerals and stuff that's in the hard water. So we're only going to be using a very, very, very small amount of calcium sulfate, also known as gypsum powder, or gypsum powder. So now we're going to weigh out a little bit of this. Normally I'd use 3.5 grams for a juicy beer, but I'm only going to use half a gram for this stout because I don't think it needs any more than that. Again, I don't understand water chemistry. I may very well do one of these online courses in beer production or beer brewing, homebrew particularly. I'm not going to be starting a business anytime soon. Wouldn't have the bloody first clue all the time anyway. So let's see what that's at. Actually, I'm using the wrong scales, aren't I? This one doesn't measure in the micrograms. So let's get the actual digital scales, the good ones, the ones that I should have got in the first place, and start again. So about half a gram, just because I think that feels right. It probably won't even make a difference. I am probably wrong, but I just know that I want a little bit of it in there just to help balance, but at the same time I don't need too much because it's not going to be a juicy beer. It's going to be relying on a heavy maltiness and that lactose sugar. So I'm going to fill this up to the 11 litres that I need, and I'm going to then put some more water into there. So I will speed this up just because it's boring and all I'm doing is pouring water. Okay, so we've got water in there now. We are just mixing in the water treatment chemicals, and the heat is on. We're going to bring this up to 65 degrees, ready for the mash. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring it up to 70 degrees because by the time you've added your malt, your bag, because of the way that I do it, I use a big bag. It's called a boil in the bag method. Like I say, you can structure this for however you want it to be with whatever setup you've got, that's fine. So yeah, as I was saying, I'm going to bring it up to 70 degrees because it will go down once I've added the grain. Then we're going to leave it to mash for an hour. We're going to come back and we're going to sparge. We'll take the wort out. We'll be adding our first lot of hops into the first runnings, which means as soon as you hoy your bag out and the liquor starts to pour into the bottom of the pan, your beer wort, we're going to add the hops at that point so that it gives it more of a, what's the word, smooth bitterness. Instead of it all being like bang in your face, it's gradually released, if you get what I mean. So that's what we're going to be doing with this. Going to let that come up to the boil. Got a couple more things to sterilise. Got to sterilise the fermenting bucket, and also we have got to crush all the grain. I ask for my grain uncrushed simply because I think it stores better, lasts longer, because I buy probably about I make 5 kits worth, and then I'll buy all of it at once just to save on the delivery, because it's like £6 delivery if you want just one item. So, you know, you might as well make it worth your while. And like I say, it stores better when it's uncrushed. If you haven't got a malt mill or a crusher, whatever you want to call it, then fair enough, buy it crushed, that's fine. It makes no difference really, apart from, you know, possibly it stores better. I'm not saying it does, I'm not saying it doesn't, I'm saying possibly. Okie dokie. Let's wait for this to come up. During that time, I'm going to go crush some grains. Okay, so we've got it up to 70 degrees. As I said, mine's a little bit higher because this bag's going to cool it down, and the grain that's going to go in is going to cool it down as well. And I don't have an electric temperature gauge, so it's not like I can just keep it at a steady temperature anyway. So what I do is I just heat it up a little bit more, and what this does is it allows me to just keep a good temperature for what I need, and so on. So we're going to peg this bag down now with these bulldog clips. This just keeps it in place while we stir, because stirring can be quite vigorous and it does sometimes wish to move the bag. So we're going to try and push this down now just to create enough room kind of shape it into the shape of the pan as best we can. Like that, giving it plenty of room for the malt to go in and move around as we mix. What I do need to do now is, after this mash is on, I need to sterilise the fermenter, which I said I was going to do, but I never got around to doing. But now, we're going to add the malt, and I need my mixeroo. You don't need to use a power tool, it's not necessary. I do it just to make my life easier. I'm actually going to unplug that and plug it in over there because this cable is a bit stretched. And the last thing we want is all that crashing down all over the place with a massive pan of hot water. That would be a catastrophe. But we're just going to add this in increments, bit by bit, and slowly mixing it in. Emphasis on the slowly, because if the bag snags, it's going to launch all of this malt everywhere. You just want to be doing it enough, just so that it's mixing it in to start with, and eventually the bag will fill out, making it a lot easier and less treacherous. But little by little, make sure it mixes in, and then add more. And so on and so on and so forth and so forth. Okay, so now take a quick temperature check. We should be around the 65 mark. Should be. Maybe a little bit more, but that's okay. And if it's any under, we'll just add a little bit of heat, it's fine. But by rights, it should be, there we go, 64, should be around 65, give or take, 64.5. Now, if it doesn't go any higher than that, I'm fine with that. It's really not going to be splitting hairs over a half a flipping degree. Now, we're at 64.5, so I probably could have let it go to 71 and we would have still been fine. But anywho, what's done is done. It can come off, sterilise the lid, goes on. Set your clock for 60 minutes. Which I will do once I can get into my flipping watch. There we go, 1 hour for that, and a 45-minute so that you know when to put on your sparge water, because you need your water up to 76 degrees to be able to sparge, and we do that after the mash is complete. Just double check that that's secure, and we're going to now add a 45-minute one. And while that is mashing, I'm going to go walk the dog as per usual. Back shortly. So that's the dog walk finished. We start heating the sparge water now up to 76 degrees so that when this is finished mashing, we can then just take it out, sort it out, and jobs are good. And that reminds me, I've actually forgot to sterilise something, so I'm going to go and do that. And what it is this lovely greasy grill, which I use to pop on top of there so that I can just place the bag on and sparge. So I need to take this upstairs and clean it because there is sanitising liquid in there. So I'm going to go do that. Right, so we've heated our sparge water to 76 degrees. We're now going to remove this lid and we're going to sparge. Now, if you're not sure what sparging is when we run hot water through this grain while still in the bag or while it's still in the kettle, as some people might have. They might have this thing that drops water and same principle, it passes through the grain, it rinses all the excess sugars out, which, you know, you've paid for them. you've done the work by mashing the grain and stuff, so you know you want that stuff. So let's move this over to the sink, which is where I normally do it, just in case of spillages. And then what we're going to do is we're going to, can you see me? Yeah, sort of. We're going to loosen this bag and we're just going to hoy it over, up like so. I'm going to get a good purchase on it, bring it together, and we're going to hoy it up. And then we put this, be quiet Siri. And then we're just going to hoy it on its side for a sec. I'm going to get rid of that because it doesn't need to be there. I'll probably move these around to the other way. Now, I have spilled some of it by accident, but that's life. And what you do is you get your bag, you get it tight, tighten it up a bit, like so, and then pop it on its side, or just rest it there. Tie it in a knot, as tight you can. Make sure it's nice and firm. Try and get it so none of it's kind of hanging over the sides, and be careful because it is hot. Do not be under any illusion that this is not hot. I'm just used to touching it. So now what we do is we get this sanitized pitcher, and there are more sophisticated ways of doing this, but this is the way that I do it. It's means to an end. Don't need any fancy equipment, really. We're going to take this water and we're going to tip that into there, like so. And then very slowly, we're going to rinse this grain like really slowly. It's going to take a long time, so be prepared to change arms if needs be. And we're just going to rinse the grain through with this hot water. Takes all the sugars down into the wort, and that is where we are at. So also at this point we're going to be adding our first hop additions, which is the Challenger hops, 17 grams of Challenger hops, into this, which is called the first runnings, which is as it's running off while you're sparging, and it just gives a better, more balanced bitterness instead of it being so like bitterness forward, if that's the way that it's described. It kind of just smooths it out a little bit because you gradually bring it to the boil, because at the moment it's not actually boiling, so it's not really releasing all them alpha acids. So it's just a nice way of bringing it to a more rounded bitterness instead of it being in your face and taking away from the malt flavours. So I'm going to speed this bit up because it does take forever. Okay, so we have successfully sparged. We're now just going to give it a little helping hand to maybe expel some more, but it didn't want to because I left it to drip for a while, see. But what I do always do, the voodoo powder, you do the doo-doo, is I take it out of there and I pop it in here, and then I clamp this down, and eventually some more does drip out. Eventually. Sometimes you get another litre, which is nice. It's better a litre in my fermenter than it is a litre of nothing. So that needs to sit over there. That can get moved out of the way, and we're going to move this over to the oven, and we're going to turn the hob on. We're going to bring this up to the boil, and once it's got a rolling boil, we're going to start our 1 hour timer. At the point of it getting to the last 10 minutes, that is when I believe I'm going to be adding all my hops, which is Saaz, Brewer's Gold and Styrian Goldings. Again, all low bitterness ones, just to give it a bit more of a dimension instead of a single hops. That's the plan anyway. Whether it works, we will have to bloody well find out, won't we? So here's the twist. We've got some drinking chocolate and some coffee beans. We're going to be making a Mocha Stout. Mocha is it's normally a milky kind of coffee. Sometimes used with cream. And what we're going to do at the moment is, while that's just bringing up to boil, we're going to measure out what we need for the lactose. So my recipe says, what I've put together, 240 grams of lactose. Now, lactose is an unfermentable sugar derived from milk. So you don't need to use this. What this is going to do is it's going to keep a little bit of sweetness. Where's my scale? It's going to keep a little bit of sweetness behind that can't be fermented. Can't plan these things. It's gone a bit dark now. Let's flip this light on. Might help a little, might not. So that's coming up to the boil, and my recipe that I made says 240 grams of lactose. Which is a considerable amount. You know what, I might just do 200. No, you know what, we'll do 240. In fact, we'll do 220. There we go, 220. Because it gets it used up a bit better as well, because it has been sat there. I don't have like a sealed tight thing to put it in at the moment. I should probably try and transfer it into something that is airtight, but this will do for now. It doesn't seem to have caused it any problems. So that will go in once the boil has started. There's your lactose. It's kind of like a creamy white powder. 220 grams, so I need to change the recipe right up to say 220 instead of 240. Otherwise, if you try and brew this, you won't get the same predictability as me. Now, I'm aiming for a 11.5 litre batch because that's just the amount that I brew at. Once this comes to the boil, we'll set a timer for 60 minutes. Add the lactose in there so it can just mulch down and mingle and do what it needs to do, dissolve and all that jazz. And after that, we'll be back with another alarm that will be set for 50 minutes. So at that 10-minute interval, we will put in the 5 grams of each of these hops that we've got here. The yeast I'm using is Safale F04, which I believe is an English ale yeast, style yeast. And I need to go and think how much of these I'm going to use for this, because I want it to have strong coffee and strong chocolate vibes, but I don't want it to overbalance those flavours without getting any of the malt and the bitterness from the hops, because I want a little bit of bitterness to know that you're drinking beer. I don't want it to taste like a dessert, but hey, I'm sure we'll find out how it goes in the end. So once this is up to boiling point, we'll be back to add that. And I don't need to show you doing that. I'm literally just going to tip that in there and mix it. But we'll be back when we come to add the hops. We'll weigh the hops out, and we will also measure out and contemplate what we're going to be doing with the coffee and the hot chocolate. Now, the hot chocolate needs using. Its best before was 2023. But to be honest, I have been drinking it with milk at night and it tastes fine. So it's going in. What's the worst that can happen? I wouldn't recommend using it past its best. It's always better if you've got it fresh and it tastes a bit nicer, but I just refuse to waste it. I bought it ages ago, as you can tell, and it just never got used for whatever reason. But now it is going to get used. So yeah, we'll be back. So we are reaching the boil now. I've just weighed out the 5 grams of each hops that's going to go in at the end. We've already done the lactose. I've got 70 grams of coffee beans that I need to grind, which I'll do in a second. And we have got 225 grams of hot chocolate. I told you I was just going to use it up. I may find that that's too much, but you know, you kind of just, you got to try it sometimes, haven't you? I've never done a chocolate or coffee stout before, but this is the first stout that I could probably say is my own recipe. And when I say that, I say it lightly because I've only got the ability to put this recipe together because of the stouts that I've brewed before it. And I kind of just learned from that. I changed a couple of bits, used different hops, added the dextrin malt, which can give mouthfeel and add to head retention without the caramel flavours that caramels can give. I googled it when I was out with the dog. I knew I'd put it in for a reason, but I just couldn't remember why. So we're at 90 degrees. So I'm going to go ahead and actually add the sugar now. Otherwise, if we do it when it's actually boiling, it's going to go over the top. That's going to need washing out. I'll give that a quick mix in. As I say, we're at 90 degrees now. And the coffee and the hot chocolate, they're going to go in like a hop stand. So it won't be a hop stand because there's no hops to be putting in for the hop stand. But if you know what a hop stand is, it's where you flame out, you turn the heat off, add whatever it is, and start to chill it. And that's what we're going to do. So I'm going to be grinding coffee. It's going to take some time because there's quite a lot of it, and I can put the ground stuff back into there. But I'm not sure how coarse I want it. Let's get some in there, give it a go, see what we get. It's not actually going to take that long. I could probably get probably do it in 2 lots, 2 or 3 lots. Now when I'm making coffee, I normally grind it for about 10 seconds, and it's coarse enough to go through the cafetiere and not come through in small bits, but I'm going to go for 5 and see what it looks like. No, I'm not, because I've unplugged it. Let's try again. 3, 4, 5. That looks good. You quite happy with that? It's quite coarse. A couple of the beans are still in their hole, but for the main part of it, it looks pretty good to me. Or should I do it for another couple of seconds to make sure I get all of the beans? Otherwise it's kind of pointless putting them all in, isn't it? I may be overdoing it with the coffee. I don't know. Yeah, like I say, this is version 1. These ones that say version 1 are going to be ones that I just kind of build on and try and get myself one beer of each style that I've put together myself, and try and just mess about with it, come back and do it again, and do it again and do it again, because the only way you learn is repetition, by doing things over and over again. That is how we learn. So yeah, that does look a lot better. There's a lot less of it now that's not ground down. So we're going to go for 7 seconds on the grind. No, 8 seconds on the grind, sorry. I'm throwing it everywhere now. On the grind. Sounds a bit naughty if you ask me. Right. That's 8. And it's done a wonderful job, even at doing a lot of it. So there we go. That's that ground down into more manageable pieces. I'm going to get a good coffee extract. This is just Tesco coffee, Italian inspired espresso coffee beans. I don't drink it as espresso, I drink it as a normal coffee, and you just add more of it because you got it in a bigger mug. But yeah, that's that sorted. We can do away with this one now, we don't need that. And this should be nearly boiling. Should. I mean, adding the lactose would have cooled it slightly, but it shouldn't have been that much. 92, 93. We're nearly there. So, when it's time to add the next thing, like the hops, we'll be back to add that hops. And there goes the alarm. So what we're going to be doing now is we're going to be adding in the hops, and that should have another 10 minutes on the other one. Just give that a little mix in. Once the 10 minutes is over, we'll switch this heat off. We will add the chocolate, drinking chocolate, and the coffee, and then instantly from that moment we are going to start to chill it. See what I mean by it always gets a little bit, I mean, it's not had the full boil, but to be fair, it's going into something that's extremely hot, so it'll be all right. We're back in 10 minutes. Right, now it is time to shut off the heat. We don't want the heat anymore. We're going to add our hot chocolate. Get it in there and give it a mix. This may work, it may not work. Again, we will wait and see. We cannot predict. We cannot predict what is going to happen. Heat's off. I'm going to let this chill to about 80 degrees before we add the coffee, simply because you don't add hot water straight to coffee anyway, because it produces some oxidants or something like that, like so. Then we're going to get that immersion cooler that we did have. We're going to move it into here, like so. And we're going to attach it to the cold water tap, clamp it down, switch it on. Watch out, because the water that's going to come out of there is hot. As you can see, very hot. And we're going to cool this down to about 80 degrees. Won't take long. And at that point, we'll add the coffee. We'll be back when it's at 80 degrees. And add some coffee. Okay, we got it a little bit further down than what was expected, but we're at 70 degrees. I did have to bring it back up because it went cold really, really quick. At this point, we are going to add the coffee and mix that in. Like so. And now, continue chilling. And that's kind of doing the little hop stand thing as it's chilling as well. Don't want to leave it there too long, otherwise it could overbrew flavour wise and have too much coffee and not a lot else. I am actually beginning to think that I've used too much coffee, but time will tell. So we're going to bring this down to, I think, 20 degrees. Yeah, we're going to bring this down to 20 degrees and then we're going to pitch our yeast. We're going to keep it at 20 degrees or around 20 degrees for probably 7 days. I think 7 days is good. 7 to 10 days is what is recommended. And then we'll give it a taste, see what it's like, get it in some bottles, and we'll go from there. So we'll be back to pitch yeast once it is at the correct temperature. Okay, we're down to 21 degrees and the water that's in this piece here is going to be a lot cooler. So as soon as we remove that, I will guarantee it will be below 21 degrees now, once all mixed in. So you want to just shake that off like so. Get all your drippy bits, because that is going to be your beer. You don't really want to lose that. And just plop that in there for now. Then pour it up, back over here, and I'm going to move some stuff around so that we've got a bit more room. We're going to get the fermenter. We're going to make sure that the tap is off. I'm going to place our lid somewhere safe. We're going to get our sanitized bag. Now this is an amazing bit of kit. I love this. This makes my life so much easier because I can drain everything out of it, hops and all the bits that I want to stay in there will stay in there, all the bits that I want to take out will take out. It's a bit magic, but I did have to use a new bag because what I'd done is I got this habit of trying to squeeze as much liquid out of the hops collection as possible, because it's all going to be beer, isn't it? So you don't want to leave anything behind that you might, to waste and that. So I squeezed it a little bit too hard and it burst the bottom of the bag. So literally, we're going to hoy it up and we're going to filter it through into there. Double check that is off. Yep. And what that's doing, holy shit. Oh my god. It just went everywhere. What this is going to do is it's going to collect all the hops, all the coffee, all the sugars and everything will seep through and collect in the bottom. Oh my gosh. I've just made a right pig's ear of that, haven't I? If we clear this bit at the top, it'll stop any more dribbling down. Sticky works. The dog's bowl might have even got some. Gosh, she went everywhere. It went all over here as well. Bloody hell. Not very often that I will waste beer, or even wort. You saw it here first. So that's going to take a while because of all of the hops and the coffee granules. It's going to take a while to seep through. So we're going to leave it for a short while, let it do its thing, and then we'll come back and add the rest of it. We did most of it in there. There's probably about that much left out of, say, that much. Probably about that much left. Yeah, and we'll be back when there's a little bit more room in there. Okay, all the hard work is done. It has finally paid off, and we have a big bucket of wort. Wort is what we call the sugars from the grain before it's actually fermented. So this is beer because it's fermented. If it wasn't fermented and it still had all them sugars in, it would be called wort. You can't beat a brew day beer. So now we need to take a hydrometer reading to determine how much sugar is actually in there, which will decide on whether I'm adding the spray malt that I said I might be adding. I don't think I'm going to, but remember, 240 grams of that sugar that went into this was unfermentable with the lactose. Although it's unfermentable, it does still register as sugars. So, bobbing around the 60 mark. I think we might be alright. That's 62. Now it sounds quite high, but that's good. Let's do a quick calculation of what we could expect from what we've got here. So depending on how well it ferments, we could get 6.3 at a minimum. Now, it could go more than that. It all depends. It may even be a little bit less than that, but I'd settle at 6%. I wanted 7. I would settle at 6% because 6% is hearty. That's good enough for me. Anywho, we're going to pitch some yeast and we're going to give it a mix. Add a bit of oxygen and add a... Oh, that's the alarm to open the gate. I've already done it. Laddo's coming back from school. So we're going to bang in 1 packet of yeast, which again is an English ale yeast, I believe, because I think S05 is the American ale yeast. But you can use all sorts of different yeasts for any beer, I suppose. But I think certain yeasts do give beers characteristics, and I think it's noticeable in things like stouts and I'm wondering why it wasn't working. It's because I unplugged it to grind the coffee. Right, so now all that's left to do, add some oxygen and mix in the yeast. And our brew day is complete. I just need to calibrate the digital hydrometer that I've got. And the only reason why I've got one of them is because I won it. Because they're about £120 and I just don't have £120 to spend on gadgets when it's unnecessary, because you can use one of these. So this started at 62. Let's plop that in there and we'll see what it says it starts at. So obviously this is a what's the word, analog device. That's probably got a little bit more precision, but they must have calibrated that on something like this anyway. Mine says 62, that says 63, so we'll roll with what that says because that's quite accurate. The temperature, it said it was a little bit different, so I've recalibrated the temperature for 18, and all that's left to do now is to add the airlock, pop it over there near the radiator so it's nice and warm. It's going to get about 20 degrees. Well, my thermostat's set for 18, but the fermentation itself causes a couple of degrees of heat in the fermentation process. So bash your lid down. We'll write up what it is that's on it, and job's a good one. Mocha Stout, here we come. We'll see how it goes. Thanks for watching as always, and I'll see you soon.